Welcome everyone to today's video. We have made it to the grand finals. Oh! We're here. 2 days of games in total. Day 1 will be analyzed now. 6 games per day. And on day 1, it's going to be 3 games on Erangel, 2 games on Miramar, and 1 game of Sanhok. And in day 2, it's gonna be 3 games on Miramar and 2 on Erangel. So we'll get to play 5 games of each of the 2 maps, and then 2 games on Sanhok as well. For those you guys don't know, if you have yet to see the games, I don't know why you wouldn't already expect this, but there will be spoilers in this. So if you want to watch the games first, do make sure to go over and do that. If not, then stick around and watch here, because there were some pretty interesting things happening. I mean, the first 2 games were very, very interesting in terms of circles and whatnot. And I mean, Sanhok was pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. And then the Miramar games, they were also kind of interesting for different reasons. We'll get into that once we get to those games. But interesting day 1 nonetheless. Let's start with day 1, game number 1 of the PGC 2019 Global Championship Grand Finals. Whew. Plane. In the air. Pretty straightforward. I mean, we've seen these planes a billion times before. Now let's look, before we see the circle, let's take a quick look at where teams are landing. So VC, they do their split. We've seen that a million times before. WClick, they get the entirety of farm to themselves. TSM, they get themselves into Milta. FaZe get their Milta power. SKT1, they will be up here. Lazarus, they kind of split around Yasnaya. That makes sense too. Genesis get this to themselves. Gatka will be taken by a Tempo Storm. Genesis push down towards Georgia Paul. Everything is pretty straightforward. The only thing that's kind of off in the beginning is this one. And it's very confusing to me, because when you watch the plane comes up and over here. GEX, I would assume, move towards North George. They would move towards North George. But they commit 3 people to landing in 1 compound down here. I mean, actually, Sophia backs off and goes away to with a vehicle. But they hard commit to taking a fight with Ensis Ace up north. We'll talk about the circle in a second, but this just made no sense to me, because they had a clear path to fly out west. They could even have taken cars down around, there's a hard spawn US here, there's a vehicle over here. Sometimes there are vehicles down here, and you have vehicles up here as well. Plenty of chances to take vehicles in different places, and you can see no one contested anything in terms of vehicles from here all the way over here. They were all parachuting and taking cars down here. So I'm not sure exactly why GX did what they did, but that was very confusing to me, and a little interesting too how GX played so, not so well, but they were really smart, especially in the early game. Really smart in the semifinals, and now it kind of fell apart. So that had happened. We won't really go into that anymore. It's pretty straightforward. It's just everyone fighting with no loot in a compound. As you can see, Genesis, they're alone. Ensis Force, correctly stated by one of you guys just now. They decided to leave. They have played military before, so they're just down here, and they do get a military circle. At least it looks that way. So pretty straightforward start to the game, to be fair. Not a whole lot to it. Seems to be a military circle. Rumblers, they'll go out on the east side, of course. They don't want to, well, they don't want to contest FaZe in Milta Power, which makes sense. But they want to be close, because Rumblers usually land Milta Power themselves when they play an MPL. But they don't want to fight against another team early on, which makes sense. But they still want to be close enough that they can have kind of the same rotations, which is why they'll settle for Lipovka. And I mean, even though it's not the exact same place, it's still whatever rotations you would normally make from Milta, you can kind of also make from the Puffcup. So it makes sense that they jump there. Now, teams starting to rotate down. FaZe take a boat. TSM already over. WClick crossing with boats. Genesis come down here. Not only do they run over each other, but they come down and they actually bridge camp 4 AM. And now I don't know if this was on purpose, but it's a pretty smart idea. Try and hold off. TSM rotate far down south. Everyone is setting up to get points. Everyone knows how extremely important every single game is in the grand finals. So we saw Genesis try and bridge camp. We've seen now Michael and I think it's Iroh sitting down here waiting for boats potentially to come down towards them. They're just sitting in kind of camping on the edge down there. Pretty usual spot to have boats come up. Iroh stays to try and see if he can hear anything. This over here is also a spot you normally come up from. Some ghost stuff is going to go around. You can see it makes perfect sense. Their whole thing, like there's essentially only 2 good spots to get up from the water. And it's here and here. Let me draw it in another color. It's there and it's there. And TSM are setting up to try and hold both of them. Because they want free points. I mean, you don't get points freer than shooting people on a boat. They can't do anything. Yes, they can shoot back, but they can't hide anywhere. They can't really do anything, especially not if the boat's moving. So they set up to try and get the free points in the early game. Genesis does manage to make it across with 4 alive. QM, they jump in the water. Wu Feng goes down, and I saw a replay of this, and I'm not sure exactly why he drowned, other than the fact that he was swimming down instead of, well, straight. And he realized that too late, so he ended up dying. Lazarus gets held on the other side and get completely wiped out by SKT1. Gen G, they push in really late, and then they see this circle and they go, well, there's so many people over here right now anyway, and there's no boats left, so we can't really cross. I think Pio was actually out there at one point trying to see if they could cross, but they heard all the shots fired over here, and they're like, nah, you know what, we're not gonna go do anything. FaZe, they realized they're shifted away from, so they're just pushing forward, try to get themselves into a better position, and they full speed crash into Na'Vi. And while it kind of makes sense, because normally this early on in the game, you normally wouldn't see 2 teams play here. So, and this is probably the least prioritized area to sit in. So they would probably expect there to only be 1 or 2 players over here. And there is only one. There only is 1 player in this area. But unfortunately for FaZe, it doesn't really work out as well as they would have wanted it to. Circle closes on in. Gen G, the only team to stay on the northern side alongside Ace and, Ace and GX, they were the ones fighting, like way up north. We talked about that in the beginning. So they aren't really done fighting before now. They need to make their move forward as well. And then this happens. And that's where things get interesting. Because all of a sudden, first of all, we're closing into phase 4 soon. So that means you can't rest in the blue anymore. Second of all the boats are beached down here, which means you can't really sail back. I think there's only 1 boat here that you can take and bring back that way. And if you want to rotate into blue, like, you have to do it now. The issue is for all these teams that are over here, because remember, once we're going phase 4, there's only, I think it's 60 seconds. You have from like the second that this circle pops, boink, until it actually starts closing in is only 60 seconds. So if you're a team, let's say you're TSM, first of all, you've just been caught completely by surprise because you were not actually expecting the circle to go north. Second of all, you now need to figure out what the hell do we do. And if you want to rotate like the Rumblers do over this way, then this, like, the time you spend driving from this whole pile of teams just to the edge is pretty much that minute gone. And then you have to push up while the circle is closing and you're taking damage. I mean, it's very, very, very difficult. And I think for the most part, it kind of becomes one of those Miramar Island endings where this over here is the island. And everyone down here is just saying, you know what, guys, I have some bad news. I do not think we're going to make it across. And therefore, they all just say, you know what, we'll just take the fight. Let's just see how many kills we can get before we get killed by the blue. I think that's in the end what ends up happening, because TSM, you can see TSM, they're making their way down towards the beach because they want to try and see if they can get away. But Tempo Storm crashes with them, and they now are forced to take a fight with one another. Genesis took the boat over and they take the same boat back, so smart play by them. That would also really pay off in the end of it. And then we have 3 teams kind of crammed in next to each other down by the compounds on the southern side, where it just becomes a cluster. I mean, there's not really a whole lot you can do. It's just, you got to fight your way forward. New circle, we all know it's going to go where it goes. There's just not a lot you can do if you're down here. Rumblers, they managed to stay alive, but they now have to make a move as well. And they, I mean, we talked about it during the game too. They leave as the circle starts closing, and that makes pretty good sense. And the thing is, if you look at it, where can they go? Like, if not, they're starting here, right? They have to go inside the circle. Where can they go, if not what they do? What do they have for options? Okay, in theory, they have the hill, they have the compound, they have the forest area here, and I guess they have the south rocks down here. Those are the 4 options they kind of have. Or they could just try and like full speed send it through, but let's just work with these options. Those are the immediate options they have inside the circle. I mean, this is not inside, but it would allow for them to push further over and around. And what they do, I mean, they've hurt people up here, so that's a no-go. They've hurt people over here, so that's a no-go. They didn't see, I think, anyone over here, so that's technically doable. And this down here would just fuck them up. So they end up making a rotation towards this area, but they never see Rebo. Rebo is like down by the rocks, and they never see him. So he manages to knock 1 player and flush 1, I believe. Or does he? Maybe he doesn't. Oh no, he doesn't get anyone now, but he does do damage to 2 of them, which means that in return, they get lasered by like 4 different teams and end up getting eliminated. So that's a little unfortunate for them. On the south side, again, I mean, not a whole lot you can do. Son Yang manages to cross on over. He's running on the bridge. Uber is sitting underneath it, realizing he won't make it across, so he's going to go down. New circle pops. And this is where things, in terms of endgame analysis, get pretty interesting. Because technically, we're only in phase 5. Like, this is still... It's not early mid game, but it's not end game at all. But we only have 18 players alive. I mean, there's only 6 teams remaining in this game, so that would be considered end game, right? So what happens? So those of you guys who don't know the terrain around here, sorry for yawning. Our sleep schedule on this stream is pretty messed up these days. What ends up happening here is that this whole field, of course, you can't really do a whole lot in. You have these 4 shacks. This down here is a wooden one that you can't really sit in. There are these 4 shacks. 5 if you count this one, but that doesn't really matter. And SKT1 realized, well, as you can see, Ace, they have beat us to it. I mean, Adder and a Cat, they can't really do anything. So they just need to full speed send it, and they get themselves down to a shack inside the circle. Makes perfect sense. Gen G, they have all the control up here, so they don't really need to worry too much. And everyone is being mobile. The only team, when the circle pops, that is really inside the circle, other than Gen G down here, is Genesis. And everyone else is moving, except for Genesis. Genesis has a chance in this circle to spread out and take more control. There's still 4 guys alive. I think one of them has been knocked earlier, but not a whole lot more to it than that. And I don't think pushing down to the shack would be the smart idea, as they do have the high ground. But looking at how little a portion of the circle they're in, it does make things difficult. So what I thought they were going to do when I saw the circle pop, was to start scouting down here. Because if you sit up on the hilltop, it's very easy to get... and also they had 2 cars. They had 2 cars still. When you sit over here, it's very easy to get pinned behind trees and rocks and whatnot. So I thought they would maybe send 2 down here to get like an off angle, because if the circle should go towards them, they will then hold the cross here. Like these 2 guys that are positioned down here, they can hold whatever comes over this way, while these guys up here can try and contain what is up here. Does that make sense? That's what I thought was going to happen, but they opt to stay instead, and that's very confusing to me. You can see them moving around. They're all trying to look for what they should do. And I think at some point they actually do scout. Like they look down here they just never commit to the push, maybe because they had been, I think one of the reasons might be that they had all been spending so much time looking up here that they were afraid that while you can see all of them, like literally all of them are shooting at SKT while they're crashing in. So they have no vision on the gas station. And when they see, okay, 18 alive, first game, I just think there's too much on the line in their head to push it. But given the fact that they have 2 cars available, I think it would have made sense for them to do, because they would have been able to hold off so much better and get better off angles than what they end up doing. Now, if we push further forward, all right, Adder goes down, Akkad is down as well, so SKT is down to just having these 2 players inside the shack. Circle goes towards them once more, and now it's even more so a thing, because they're inside the circle, and they know there's a team up here somewhere, and they know everyone else is locked down. Like, all these players are locked down to whatever shacks they have. There's nothing else here. If we zoom back, there's nothing else here but 3 shacks. And they know exactly where they are. They know exactly where they are. So when this circle pops, look at how much terrain they have. They're technically sharing the circle with 2 players. I guess you can say 3 with Alpaca inside the circle too. The fact that they still don't, and they don't hear any shots either. That's the thing, because normally if somebody had been shooting down here, then okay, fair enough, there might be a team down there, but they never get shot at from that angle. They never get focused from that angle. And that makes me think, why not push down? Because the thing is, you will get contained. Like, you will get contained up on that hillside if you allow the teams to push in. So right now, they have plenty of chances to push down. Never happens, though. Esther pushes to the hillside. He can look on over. And remember, they still have 2 vehicles available. Gen.G pushing down, using all the cars, playing it smart together. Of course, at this point, there's a billion smokes being thrown everywhere. Smokes everywhere. And with every second that goes, these guys just get more and more and more contained. Look how dynamic Gen.G is, constantly moving around. All the time, never letting opponents like pin them down anywhere. Use the vehicles. They all use vehicles all the time to move around side to side to side. They lose 1 player. Loki goes over to help. Constantly on the move. And in the meantime, Genesis, they have moved a total of like 50 meters. And they all get pinned down on the top, and they end up going out in 3rd place. It was very, I mean, when you see this circle shift here, and see that Genesis is the only team inside the circle that has it has space to move around. And then you see this end game, where it's actually Gen.G who has all the room, and these guys are pinned into this. That is very surprising to me. I would not have thought that it went that way, but it does. Gen.G ends up winning the game. Oh, yes, they didn't have to rotate too much. The early game was very gifted to them by the fact that the circle came back up north. But the way they played the end game, was extremely well done. Like, they should never have won this game. I'm willing to say that had it been like maybe 13 other teams in this lobby that had set up here, Gen.G would not have won that game. I don't know why Genesis played it so defensive, but it's very surprising to me. So that was game number 1. We're gonna hop into game number 2 in a second. I saw there were some questions that I wanna answer. Where do I have this? Oh, there it is. Game number 2. Zoom out. Okay, let's see. They should have sent 1 guy at least to the closest shack when they saw the circle pop. They could get cover also from above, from the teammates. I mean, there were opponents in the shack, so they couldn't really go there. They knew that there was that there were 2 opponents inside the building. So that would be a little suicidal. Yeah, I mean, okay, so it wasn't really questions. It was more just you guys kind of agreeing with me, kind of coming with other suggestions. It was pretty interesting. It was pretty interesting. Anyway, let's jump into game number 2. I was just reading along what you guys were saying. Okay, so game number 2, Western Plain. Western Plain. Hey, Francis. This, of course, becomes a little tricky because you have Rumblers, FaZe Clan, TSM, SKT, VC, Lazarus, QM, 4AM. Okay, these guys can go there. But still, a lot of Eastern teams that will have a hard time making their way all the way over. TSM, normally, and that's the funny thing here, normally, TSM would fly further down and go here for vehicles and take cars down here and then do this. But this time around, because they know there's only one farm team and they probably don't expect them to be too much of a fight, they actually fly with them. You can see they jump out later even. W-Click is already out, and TSM jump later to try and get vehicles. And they almost get killed as well. There was, if you guys didn't see it, let me see if I can find the clip. It was actually pretty entertaining. Watch this. They were being chased. Watch this view. I mean, Silson can see 4 people in parachutes right above him. 4 people right above him. And he almost hits one. Then he runs into Iroh, who somehow doesn't get knocked. And then Michael has to get in the car as well. And he's not entering it. I don't know why he's not getting in, but just exactly gets away. That was pretty interesting. Pretty fun, but nonetheless, somehow they all managed to somehow they all managed to get away from that alive. That was pretty insane. Anyway, circle pops. And not really too much to it. It's pretty straightforward. Easy rotations for teams to make their way on in. It could technically still go north, but that would require some crazy shifts. And of course, some teams have changed up their loot spots too. SKT, they're on the west side. VC, they're going up here once more. They have been here before, so it's not really the biggest thing. GEX finally make it to their split they would have wanted in the first game. Rumblers, they stay north. Lazarus, they go up to Severny rather than try and go down to Yasnaya. Not really anything surprising. I mean, after this is done, it quiets down a little. There's not really too much to this first circle. And you can see, I mean, teams are rotating pretty safely in the beginning. There's not really too much going on here in the start of the game. FaZe need to cross over at some point. Force needs to cross over. TSM needs to rotate in. They can kind of do whatever they want. They were a little late and they're not really in a hurry anyway. 4AM rotates center on this, and actually I kind of like this. I like this rotation. They just send it over. Initially, I think they want the hilltop, but because Summer and DJ start shooting at them, they go down and take this. Keep this in mind, guys. Keep this in mind. 4AM go down and take this position. And they came from here. So all, or at least 3 of the players from Tempo Storm heard them. 3 players from Tempo Storm heard them rotate through. This compound, it's an alright compound as long as you don't get contained. Because I call them horseshoe compounds. Because you have like a horseshoe of a wall around. So you're kind of in the middle of the horseshoe. Does that make sense? There are some of them on Miramar too. Like prison, you know how you have something in, like you have the prison itself and then around it there's a wall. So it's very easy to be contained inside, but you can see as soon as they get down there, Wayless and Seiko, I think it is, both push up towards the wall to try and scout forward from up here. So never allow for teams to push up towards you. But they go down here. Tempo Storm is well aware of it, VC is well aware of it, and Entis Ace is as well. Can you explain Entis Force rotation? We can look at Entis Force's rotation and see what happens. Because nothing else really happens here in the beginning of the game. I mean, Rumblers do fight GX, so I guess that does happen, but there's not too much to analyze. They do make a smart play with the vehicle. I don't know if that was intentional. I think it might have been, but a sneaky play nonetheless. Let's see what happens. FaZe, they already went around all the way towards the west coast. Force, they just spread early. They just, right now, they just spread. They just want vision, they want control, and they want to know if the circle goes up here, we have a fast rotation there. If the circle goes out here, we have a fast rotation there. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just, right now, they're trying to spread out to get more vision. Now they start rotating. Enters ace, push-up maneuver. They realize Tempo Storm is in the compound. They have to go further north. Force, continuing their rotation around the side. Not a whole lot to it. They realize that Genesis is inside the swamp. They turn around and don't want to fight them. And they play spread again. They do the exact same thing here as they did in the first circle. They know there's no one in their corner of the circle. They know they're the latest ones to enter the circle. So they just spread out and take control. There's not really too much to it. It's pretty straightforward. They spread out. You see Kale, he's up on the hillside. He's looking down towards face. Doya is sitting on the mountain here. It's like a hilltop compound where you have vision towards this side. And Son Yang is looking out this way. So you have plenty of vision in all directions. You could even go further. You might even go up here and scout forward. So he has plenty of vision. Plenty of vision for Ensis Force. In the meantime, things are kind of getting crammed up and around the northern side. Gen G playing Hospital. Rumblers, they're chilling in North George. New Circle Pups. Pretty center. I mean, it's when you compare this distance to this distance, it's pretty center. It's pretty center. It didn't have to exclude the water now, but it kind of does. So there's not really a whole lot to it. Now the only thing is that center in this circle, you can kind of outline it with this road, not completely, but sort of. Goes something along the lines of this. This is like a big field. There are things you can hide behind and whatnot, but it's a big field. And it's not exactly the best place to sit and hide. Because, I mean, in the late game, you can play many different spots there. But this early, when you still have the Everest or the hill in, when you still have Observatory Hill in, when you still have the middle in, there are just so many spots that people can see you from if you're running around out here. So it's going to be extremely difficult to do anything from those positions. Which is why we don't really see anyone there, except for SKT in the very middle. Circles closing in. Again, spread out from Ensis Force. Get vision, get control. That is exactly what they normally do. Gen G spreading out, getting control. PO looking over towards Micro because here's the vehicle come over. Now, I want you guys to look towards Tempo Storm because this is where things get a little interesting. So, what we see up here is Ace, they came above them. And they were shooting at them, obviously. So they pushed up towards Everest. Everyone knows Ace is sitting up here right now. Or that at least that there's one team up there. Because they were being shot at. Well, by everyone. Now, as the circle's closing in, Sicko knocks one of the Ace players. So they know. I mean, Tempo Storm can hear that there are people down here. 100%. It's not that far away from each other. So they can easily hear this. And still, I'm just going to let this clip play out. They do that. And now there are multiple things to it. New Circle Pups, and they know they're out. I mean, yes, they could technically stay in the corner of this building, but you're not going to do that. I want to find the clip for you. Because there are some different things to talk about in that clip. Let me see. It should be somewhere, right? It's gotta be somewhere. Did no one clip this yesterday? Really? Oh, there we go. So, watch this. You can see it up here. Tempo Storm decide to rotate over towards 4 AM. Same as we see it here. Same as we see it down here. And this is what happens in the video. and they're eliminated. Now, there are multiple things to it. I think one of the most important things to take away is look at the distance between them. We can pause it here and you can kind of see it. Sharpshot and Maluk are at least like 30-40 meters apart from each other. You can see it even better here. Look how far away Maluk is from Sharpshot. Sharpshot is way down here. And Maluk is all the way up there, almost flying over the hill, which means that by the time Maluk starts flying off, which he does here, by the time he's here, he's practically dead because everyone on the team is shooting at him. And they will all get to reload their guns and start shooting again before the next team comes over that hill. Which is why, and this is a good learning tool for all you guys watching out there as well, which is why, if you're going to breach a building like this, which in theory, I mean, it's a dangerous play, but you can do it. If you want to make a breach like this, you need to go together. You need to pretty much have all your cars driving at the exact same time over that hill. But here it was one after another, and I think that was a very big... I mean, they probably wouldn't have survived that push anyway, because they were all waiting for them, and why they made the play, I still am not quite sure. But if it was supposed to be a success, then they would have wanted to at least rotate all together, and that's clearly not exactly what happened. So they all end up going down in flames. Enter's Forge push towards the center, and there's still not a lot that you can play. There's still not a lot that you can play in this open field, because we still have both the compound, we have the hills, we have the compounds around, Hospital Hill in, and we have the center point in. So Enter's Force, they kind of swipe their way through the middle to get up to the, it's like a little water tower thingy that you have there, and they can't do anything from there. I mean, they just have to prone where they are. And now they're center, so now hopefully what will happen is that a lot of other teams will die around them, and they can then kind of wait it out while everyone else is fighting. They're just going to be proning pretty much on top of each other. Not a whole lot more you can do. Rumblers, they have to push into the circle. They crash down towards Face Clan. QM pushes up towards SKT1 and actually gets a pretty good engagement there, even though they don't get that many of the kills. VC and 4AM take a lot of them. It's still a pretty good fight. TSM push over the top to take the fight with Enter's Ace. They decide to disengage. Now the circle hard shifts north. Purdy is down in the middle, not a lot he can do. Gen G disengages and takes the dip. Makes perfect sense too. I mean, they just want to have control. If they can control this entire northern side, they're golden. And they know where Luke is, they take him down. They know Aloy is up here, he can't do anything. And right now, Gen G is sitting on a pretty good chunk of the circle. And they know as well that they don't really have to do anything right now. They have the hilltop that they can look over. And essentially, they just have to wait. They just have to wait and let everyone else take the fights they want to take. 4AM gonna all push out of the compound together. Smart play by them to not stay for too long. Again, we talked about how you need to have the control of the, I guess you can say that hill that we saw the Tempo Storm players fly down from. If opponents can sit up there and look down towards you, then it's pretty easy to be killed when you try to leave. Indigo is going to go down to blue, at least try to, but Summer kills him. Gen G now trying to get more control on that east side. They hold off Ace, and that's an important hold too, because with that, like with being able to hold them off, that will allow for them to push up this way. Like they need room. Right now they're all sitting in a little dip, and they need some room to maneuver around. 2 guys down. Esther's down low as well. They all get eliminated, and all of a sudden now, they can start spreading out. 4 AM, I mean, everyone's waiting for the final circle, of course, but 4 AM, they can't push this way. Because once they start going over here and look down in this direction, VC can look up towards them and shoot them. And the same thing going the other way. If they overcommit to looking down here, Gen G can shoot up towards them. So they're pretty much locked down where they are, and what they need is that these two teams start fighting. The issue is, VC don't have to leave the circle before 4 AM does. So 4 AM, even though they want to wait, need to make the first move. Like, they have to leave from where they are first. You can see no matter where they are, everyone's shooting at them. And once Gen G realizes, like figures out exactly where all their opponents are, they start spreading out and taking control. Pio pushes over the top, gets himself a good double. And now it's well, I mean, it's a 3v2. It's still doable for Dome and DJ, but it's just, I mean, they're playing the very edge. There's not a whole lot they can do. They have nades. They've been sitting on the northern side for so long. They haven't been using utility. I mean, now they use their smokes, obviously, but they just have so much room. And Gen G get themselves one more win. So very, very, very strong start to the day for Gen G in this. Very good start. That was the second match, correct. Now we're jumping over to game number 3 in just a moment. I see there are some questions, and there are no dumb questions, guys. You can ask anything. There dumb questions exist, believe me. But in terms of PUBG, I would like to say that there isn't. Using skins not allowed in tournaments, is that true? Because I saw no one with skins except for Spider-Man. There's a rule, I think, and they don't use their normal accounts. So in PUBG, you have the online client, you have the event client, and you have the LAN client. And the online client is the one that everyone is playing on. The event one is one that is being used by teams when they're playing certain online tournaments. And then the LAN client is the one they can use when they have these big LAN events where PUBG Corp people come out and help set it up and all that stuff. And when they play on the LAN client, they just... I mean, everything is controlled from PUBG Corp's side. So I think they told them that they have to play the whole game with basic skins and with the PGC skins. Which is why it's funny, because when you look at Miramar in particular, there is not a whole lot of red things on Miramar when you think about it. Like, there's not a lot of things that are red other than containers and some barrels. And everyone is running around with bright red helmets. That's not something you would normally see. Like, it's not very camouflage color to have a big red helmet running around. But because the PGC skin is red, then they all have to use it. That's a little interesting. So they have to use the they have to use the PGC skins. I hope that answered your questions. Who do I think will win the tournament? That is a tough question. I think we'll discuss a little about it after we're done with the analysis here. We'll have a little talk, guys. We'll have a little we will talk after. We'll talk after the game about who we think will win and all that stuff. Let's go into game 3 though, because I don't want the people watching on YouTube to have to sit around and wait for too long. Plane, decent. It's south, but it's fine. So now we have had a plane like this, a plane like this, and a plane like this. We pretty much have had all the planes, except for something very diagonal in that direction, but that doesn't really matter. GX out early. Don't want to go north. George makes sense. Gen G, they're gonna drive north. Insis Force down where they normally go. No surprises. 0 surprises in where people go. And then we get a northern circle. So we have been on military. We have been west, and now we have been north. A lot of variation. I like it. It's very good. Very, very good. It's so boring when all the circles are completely the same. So I'm glad to see that we get some variation. I'm sorry that I'm yawning so much. I was up until 8:30 this morning, so it's a little upside down. It says on the screen what match we're in, guys. Watch the screen. That does help a lot. 4 a.m. They're gonna rotate early, try and get some control up on the hills. Lazarus moving out as well. SKT, they're pushing into the east side of Yasnaya. We've seen that before. W-Click, they end up in a fight with VC, but somehow I think they all managed to make it out alive. That was pretty scary for a little while there. Everyone's rotating. Enters Force, the last team. Again, they're the military team, so they're not in a hurry. And something happens over here. This is a very interesting thing to take a look at. We'll do that in just a moment. FaZe ends up getting eliminated by Rumblers. And then you go, huh. That was interesting. Why did that happen? Well, let's find out. Because I know exactly why it happened. Rumblers, they normally loot in Multipower. We talked about that earlier. And now they have jumped up one spot and they loot Lipovka. Now, when it's a northern circle, I think most teams are aware that FaZe will make northern rotations. Pretty obvious. And if you go to Rumblers, they have Loss, Cherry, Microfry, and Waldo. They have 4 vehicles. They have a buggy, they have a Dacia, they have a US, and they have a bike. So 4 different vehicles. They have 1 for each player. Loss has the US, Microfry has the buggy, and Waldo has the US, and Loss has the Dacia, and Cherry has the bike. Now watch what happens. Instead of just going north to find a position immediately, look how they split. Micro goes over the top. Waldo and Loss spreads out right here. So right now, they have set up an ambush between them. And they have the info man down here. So, if we go back and see, these guys are positioning themselves up from here to here. And while they do this, Cherry is listening, because he knows it might not be FaZe, but there will be a team that rotates around this way. So as soon as he hears the bikes come driving, here they are, going that way. Cherry jumps onto his own bike and screams, I think, to the guys, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming, be ready, be ready, be ready. He's gonna drive up to his teammates, and while he's driving, these 3 guys are saying, well, now we know they're coming, let's just wait for them. And they drive straight into the trap. Because not only are they under fire now from 3 players, but they don't know Cherry Poppins is behind them. And they end up losing all 4 players. So very, very, very smart play by Rumblers to kill FaZe. Very smart play by Rumblers in that case. It's not something you see too often where teams try and set up specific traps like that, but the way they did it there was very well coordinated. Or at least it looked that way. Of course, I didn't talk to the players, so I don't know if they knew it was going to be FaZe, but I'm very very certain that they did. Now, the next circle pops, and this is a fun one, because we don't normally go all the way up to the mountain, so the fact that Stalper is in the very center of this one is it's just interesting. Look where the teams were prior to this. Everyone was hoping that it was going to either go west or somewhere south maybe, but nope, we're going straight up north. Which, adds for some chaos. 4 AM, they're going to play on the northern side. The remaining players from SKT1, they tried to push up, but they end up losing 2, so they go in. Ensis Force goes on the coast. VC is on the northern side. GX out here as well. Nobody really wants to go up the mountain before they absolutely have to. You could kind of call Stalper one big city. Not that it is a city, but because it's so steep, it's so difficult to maneuver around. Teams, at this point, if you're Na'Vi in this situation and the circle pops, let's see, where is Na'Vi? Navi's all the way down here. When this circle pops, I don't think Na'Vi is saying, guys, do you think we can get maybe this position for free? Nah, that's not gonna happen. Na'Vi is well aware. They know there's no way we will get anywhere here. Like, this is suicide. Cannot do it. You will drive uphill. You will drive slow. You will take lots of damage. And there will be so many players around that you will die. So what they do is they move slow instead on the edge of the circle and say, okay, we wait to next circle, and see what happens. Because as you can see, everybody is trying to get inside the red circle here. Nobody wants to have to use their cars. And Na'Vi is hoping that the next circle will shift away from the mountain. Because if the next circle goes, let's say it goes south, or it goes really, really far up to the north, or even west side, if it goes away from this, teams will have a very difficult time leaving with vehicles. Because because they're so close to each other now. Like, everybody crashed up towards the hill, and now getting away from it is going to be hard. So some of the teams that are out on the edge, Tempo Storm, GX, VC, Ensis Force, WClick, all these teams, they have so much more breathing room. They have so much more space to move around, where TSM, they're in between, like 6 different teams. SKT1, they're on the hill. How the fuck do they get down if the circle goes down here, for example? So they push in late. They wait for the new circle to pop and hope that it goes somewhere out to the west. Unfortunately, not gonna happen. It's gonna go even further up towards the middle. A big hole comes here, mainly because you can't really play from here at all. It's very open, and you will easily get third party. That's another thing. When you have these mountain endings, it happens on Miramar also. When we have these mountain endings, teams try to third party all the time. Like, they will try and third party literally all the time in these games. Because when you have, let's say that Genesis push down towards Lazarus, Tempo Storm can run unnoticed so far because they run like on the side of a hill. So they can run all the way around and spot Genesis without also being visible to Lazarus. Because they can shoot them, like if you have the hill here, they can sit down on this side and shoot them while they are shooting this side, right? But these guys cannot see this way. Like, these guys cannot see all the way over to where they are because the way the mountain is curved. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. So it's very third-party inviting on Miramar to on Stalber to take those fights, and that's kind of what ends up happening, because you can see Tempo Storm and Gen G, they end up Genesis. They end up fighting. Immediately, Lazarus goes, "Huh? Is there a fight going on over there? I think we could find some kills." And they start running up towards them. They get to third party. GX tries to hold off Genesis as well. They end up falling back the other way. And now, because Gen G here says they want a third party, Entis Force wants the third party because VC and Navi were fighting. Everybody third parties at the exact same time in this circle. It becomes one big third party fiesta. And now that Gen G has heard so much fighting over here, they think, oh, okay, we move this way because there was so much fighting over here just now. We need to make a push in that direction. Again, look at this lineup. GX is caught in a very bad situation, because if they start fighting here, these guys push here. If they start fighting here, these guys push here. And then these guys push here. It becomes like a big cat and mouse chase kind of thing. Or the cat hunts the mouse. The dog hunts the cat. You know what I mean? So it's like, chung, 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 chung. They all follow each other all the way around. But fortunately for GEX, they actually managed to wipe out Gen G. I mean, it doesn't happen fast enough, but they do wipe all 4 of them pretty quickly. Unfortunately, though, Lazarus, they are already there, holding, and you can see Allo actually stays behind. Even though that means there are only 3, Allo stays because, as we just saw, when GX has the fight, when GX starts fighting here, Lazarus pushes here. And they know there's a team over here somewhere. So they need to be sure that what other team cannot push there. Like, they go to fight there, they go to fight here. They must make sure that no team can come and fight here. Which is why, when they push up 3 people, Allo stays. Because then he can sit here, even though they're fighting, he can sit and look in this direction. And if they push, if they decide to push this way, he can then say, guys, time out. You need to come back and help me, because now TSM is coming. But fortunately, he stays alive, holds them off, nothing happens. Stalber, that becomes a chaotic area. I mean, the game has to end somewhere, I was going to say, and now it goes down on the hill. For those of you who don't know the terrain exactly, it's steep, then it's flat, and then it's steep on the other side again. And now we have 3 teams left alive. And this is where, I think, in this lobby, in these 16 teams in the grand final, these 3 teams, TSM, Lazarus, 4AM, they are the best teams for late game 4 men alive fighting. In the late game, there's always so much communication you need to do. There are so many things happening. All the information is really important. And sometimes teams just talk too much and it ends up getting them killed. But these 3 teams from each their region are some of the very best in the world at fighting late game with 4 players alive. Now, normally, when you're 4 players alive late game, the teams you are against will be maybe a duo, maybe a solo, maybe 3 players alive, so you will have an advantage. But in this situations, it's 3 teams that all have 4 players alive, and they are all the 4 of 3 teams that are really good at playing well in those late game scenarios. So even though, and that's the funny part to me, even though there is not a lot of action happening here early on, there's so much going on. Even though we don't really see anybody getting knocked early and all that stuff, there is so much going on. And I want you guys to look at TSM, the way that they play this end game, because it is very impressive the way that they do it. I mean it. Very, very, very impressive the way that they end up playing this. Watch this. Circle, final circle of the game, has to go somewhere. It goes center. Now the issue for TSM is, and this is not because I'm not a TSM fanboy or anything. This is just TSM played this very, very impressive. So I want you guys to understand what it is that they did. TSM are down here with Michael underneath. Michael is making sure, Michael is sitting here to sit and make sure that Lazarus cannot run underneath. He will make sure that no one can come that way. And maybe if he has to, then he can make this push, right? So he will stay down here. He's pretty much doing the same as Allo. Allo and Michael is doing the same thing. In the meantime, we have this flat area that nobody can really push into from TSM because Wayless and Sego are sitting and holding them. So they know there's 2 ways this can happen. There's 2 ways this can happen. Either we push like this and fight Lazarus, or we push like this and fight 4 AM. The thing is, both, I mean, you can see 4 AM are all inside the circle. Lazarus, pretty much all inside the circle. TSM, not so much. Not so much. They need the knocks, they need the kills, they need everything to start pushing inside this circle. And Lazarus actually, obviously it's not on purpose, but they kind of help them out. Because you can see there, Michael takes the bike up. Now they have lost all control in the south. Now they have lost the control down here. Michael has left. We no longer have info. They can push up this way. TSM is caught in a corner. They're using smokes. They're using their nades. But they keep tagging the opponents. You can see they can never push on them. This is a situation where Lazarus, they think, we wait. I mean, they have to fight. That's what you think. They need to fight. We can third party. We will chill. Just like you saw with the GX. Just like you saw with GX. We wait until they must fight. Then when they have maybe 1 player knocked, 2 players knocked, then we come. Because then we're 4 alive. Whoom, and we can run in and we can kill them all. And because they're on the side, if, let's say, Gustav is knocked from 4 AM, they're shooting down this way. And there's a tree here. If there's a tree here, let's do this. There's a tree here, and 4 AM is shooting down this way. Then of course Gustav is gonna be prone down there, which means that if he's prone here, they can come steal the kill because they can see him from the side, you know? So Lazarus is just waiting. They're looking above, they're looking below, just waiting for these 2 teams to fight. And now, because Forever gets knocked by Luke. Of course, you will try to knock a guy when you have a chance to. Because he's knocked, that means that Lou has to res, Sego has to cover, and Wayless cannot push all by himself. He cannot push by himself. He needs to wait. So now that means that TSM knows that these guys are busy. These guys are busy until Forever gets rest, and until he gets healed, they're busy. And also he knows now that since they can knock a player that is up here, they must be split 2-2 on each their side of the road. Which means that Gustav, as you can see, as soon as that knock comes in, Gustav starts running. This means they're split. This means there's only 2 people down here. Gustav can push forward to take more control. They get 1 knock, and all of a sudden, Lazarus is the team that is being focused because 4M can see them on the top. TSM can see them underneath, and they can now start pushing forward. You see, all of a sudden, now they're the ones that get swarmed. So before, if we go back, as soon as Michael left on the south, this is why it's so impressive. They just switched the game. As soon as TSM is up here, everyone is thinking, or we can do it in green. Bam. Bam. Dead. But because that knock up here happens, Gustav gets a chance to push forward. Knocks come in, and all of a sudden, it's the push from the other side. And Lazarus gets completely destroyed. So very interesting thing that happened there. It was one knock that set off that entire thing. And the way that TSM plays this is so impressive because now they know, okay, final circle, it's gonna go here somewhere. They need to come down the hill. We talked about it's steep on this side, then we have a flat area, and then it's steep again on this side, right? So if you look at it from the side, it would look like this. So this is low. This is high. Right? And they're down here. So they're down here. The game ends here. And the opponents are up here. So they can just sit here and look. They don't need to move before they need to go down the hill. And I'm drawing behind my webcam, but I think you can still see what I'm drawing. You see what I mean? They just have to wait. They just have to stand here and look up this way. Because they need to fall, like they need to jump down here on the plateau. And that's exactly what happens. Michael holds the flank to make sure that they cannot push around this way. They hold above. And they just slaughter them. Very, very, very impressive game by TSM. It is very rare that a team that is in such a scary position early on as they were up here. It is very rare that a team like that can win the game. So very impressive by TSM that they win it. Very hard thing to do, and they did it very well. That was game number 3. Now we are hopping over to Sanok. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I'm just gonna get some water real quick. You got a 1-day ban from PUBG? Not good. I don't even know how do you get a 1-day ban in PUBG. I don't even know how that works. I don't have favorite team. I don't have a favorite team. Now, let's see. It's limited how much we can really analyze, but once again, at this point, Tempo Storm has, I think, 4 points in total. Sorry. And FaZe Clan has, I think, around 8. Let me double check. This early on in the game, FaZe Clan has 6 points. No, 5 points. FaZe has 5 points. And Tempo Storm has 4. 2 teams in the bottom. And still they fight for this spot. I was very surprised to see it. But the thing is, the main issue is because if it's a Wrangle or if it's Miramar and there's teams jumping next to you, it's not necessarily easy, but it's normally possible to go, oh, we're getting contested, let's go away. But you can see here on Sanok, it's such a small map. Where else can Tempo Storm go? Once they start parachuting, Rumblers will be here, QM will be here, Genesis will be here, Ensis Force will be here. Like, where can Rumblers, where can Tempo Storm go? When this happens, they can't go anywhere. They have to take the fight. They need to commit to it because everyone is splitting out and they don't have the vision, like they don't know exactly which of all these buildings are taken. So what's better? To drop one guy, maybe you die, maybe you don't, or to drop 4 guys together, maybe there's a chance you can win the fight. Very interesting to to see. Now, they managed to get away, only losing one player, I believe, at least early on. Fights escalate in the middle. Again, for those of you guys who don't know, maybe you're new to watching these series, we normally go over the the Sanhok games a little faster for two reasons. One reason is that a lot of, I think, the things that I'm trying to teach people, not teach people, but the things that I'm trying to inform my viewers about don't always apply to Sanhok. So when we're talking about rotations and when we're talking about all these things, Sanhok is a very, very, very different map. That's one reason. And also, a lot of what happens on Sanhok is very macro specific. It's very specific to how do you maneuver around, what do you peek, what angles do you hold, how do you take the fight, who goes around where, what info do you have to fight with. And we cannot really see that on a map stream, as you can see here. Oh, micro. Yeah, micro, not macro. I always mess them up. You know what I mean. The small things. And you can't really see that on a map stream. I mean, to a certain extent you can, but for the most part you can't. Which is why, until we get, I mean, I would love to do Sanhok, like just full day with Sanhok analysis. If I could go into these games as a spectator and, you know, fly around with the camera and all that stuff, I would love to do Sanhok specific analysis, but it's not possible. It won't be useful for you guys enough when it's like a big cluster of teams on top of each other like we see here. It's not really that useful. So we spend not so much time on Sanhok as we do on the other maps. Just so you guys know. Tempo Storm getting fought off by Genesis. They're trying to hold, but Genesis is in a peculiar situation because they're sitting on the hilltop, but they know that GX is behind them, and they know that Tempo Storm is on the side. So Genesis, they desperately need, you can see as soon as they get knocks, they constantly turn around to see, are they pushing? Are they pushing? Are they pushing? They're in the middle of everything, and it's very difficult to play around there for too long. VC, they're still looting. They're like, circles? No, who cares? It's Sanhok. Let's just loot. They're just chilling. They're not in a hurry. W, Click, and 4 AM, they're chilling in their compounds. Gen G has 2 wins in 3 games so far, guys. Remember that. And now they're sitting in this compound. Remember. For later, remember that Gen G is here now. Okay? Scan the compound, remember where it is, and remember that they're there. Right here, Gen G. The team who is currently sitting in first place in the tournament. Now, SKT1 push towards Lazarus. Gen G push out, and this is one of those, we've seen it before, type scenarios. Gen G push out to play this compound, which makes sense. So many games have ended around this compound. A lot of games has ended here. Ace go take the position. Very smart reaction by Ace. They hear them leave. Send it over. They get themselves into a good position. Ace takes this compound, guys. Listen to my words. Ace takes this compound from Gen G. There's a reason I'm saying it the way that I am. Tempo Storm play the south side, enters Force and Rumblers try and push up towards them. And everyone's pretty spread out. I mean, you still have some areas up on the top you can play, but no one's really gonna stick around there. Circle goes north, again, Gen G expecting it to go up and around this area. They end up getting eliminated. Enters Force, crash into the quarry. It's not something you would see too often, but they do manage to make it in there. Face with 4 alive. Nope, they only have 2. Not anymore. Not anymore. Circle goes a little further south. All of a sudden, enters Ace sitting where Gen G would have been, with the players straight in the middle. TSM, they wrap around the side, and this is again 4 guys alive from TSM. Scary lineup. GX even have 4 guys alive, and they're holding off pretty strong on their side of the circle too. The thing is, everyone needs to push forward. And this circle is where things, I mean, for most teams get really hard because TSM is already caught on the side. And for W-click, I don't think they are aware that... wait, give me a second. Do I have to do this sometimes? No, it's fine. I don't think they're aware that there's a team sitting right below them. Because 4am, I mean, 4am will have to cross over somehow. And W-click know for a fact we cannot focus here. We cannot go out and hold because we need to hold. You know what I mean? Like, they need to stop these guys before they can push. But these guys will stop these guys as well. So they know they're fucked no matter what. They just need to make a decision. Like, either we hold or we push. There's only two options. And they kind of end up not doing any of them. They allow for 4am to push over, and they don't really aggress on Ence's force, and they kind of just get caught in the middle of everything. And while all these teams are fighting down here and losing players, Ence's Ace, the team that that looted in this compound, the compound that Gen.G had, but left because they wanted to go up here, they just go over here. Now they set themselves up, hold the side, 4v2, and they win the game. I think that's kind of funny. And it's gotta be a damn it. I don't know what damn it is in Korean, but I'm sure that Gen.G, when they came back or when they saw this game, they were probably like, I told you we should have stayed in the compound. I don't think anyone actually said that. It seemed like it was a very committed decision to push up to this. And it is also, I mean, as I said, this is an area that a lot of games have ended in. So it was just funny that they left this and then the game ends down here. It was a little funny. But that's the Sanhok game. We're going to head over to the first Miramar game of the Grand Finals. Let me scroll out. Let me see if there was any questions. System triggers from player and many report. That's what we're talking about. VC made into circle. What do I think about Iroh? Really nice person. Very good player. Second time 4am appears to miss smoke to push. I didn't mean they had been pushing they hadn't really looted anything else. If you go back and look at the game, we're not gonna do it now, Carrie, but they landed in that area and they never got to loot anything else. They just stayed. They just stayed because the circles kept coming. So I don't think they ever found smokes. And also, you guys might know this or might not know this, but if you go and look tonight, if you're watching the games, Pace can maybe vouch for me on this, but tonight when you watch the games, look on Sanhok at the utility. You can see it in the bottom. Look on Sanhok at the utility that the players have, smokes, molotovs, grenades, and then compare that to when you look on Erangel and Miramar. As far as I know, in competitive games, it is very difficult, for some reason, I don't know why, but it is very difficult to find smokes on Miramar, on Sanhok, I mean. Many teams don't find smokes on Sanhok. I know that was an issue for a while. I don't know for sure if it still is, but we can take a look at it tonight when we watch the games and see if that's still the case. How many smokes do players actually find on Sanhok? Because as far as I know, it's not a lot. People don't find a lot of smokes. Which team's playstyle do I like more? I don't really have one playstyle that I favor. I have different, I guess you can say. I like the way Ence's Ace rotate. I like the way TSM fights. And I can keep going like that. So I like small things from a lot of different teams. But I don't think if you took all those things and put them together, then I don't think it would necessarily be a very good like playstyle. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of different things. There was a different question, suggestion. Can I scroll up? Match TSM1 on Erangel must be used for a lesson. I would like to see it on the playbook series. I cannot say anything about the playbook series, but I'm gonna say maybe I will use it. Maybe. But I cannot tell you if I am going to. So, Game number 5. We'll hop on over to that. Decent plane. Not too much to it. What things do we see if we go back to before the circle pops? Act like you didn't see it, guys. Gen G has committed out of... Well, I mean, first they went Monte... No. First they went Picado in PKL. Then they went Monte in the group stages. Then they went El Pozo in the semifinals. And now they go El Asaha in the finals. Boink, boink, boink. That is, that's adapting. That is changing up the playstyle a lot. Center position, I mean, these two positions are pretty similar, so it's not the biggest thing. But center, west edge, east edge. There's a lot of change in play for Gen G on Miramar. Which is why it's so much more impressive that they actually... I mean, this game wasn't good for them, but the next one was pretty good. Now, circle goes north, and teams, I'm going to draw a line. That looks something like that. And that looks something like that. And that looks something like that. These are the 3 lines teams will take to get into this circle. Unless if they are there, then they're obviously not going to go out to then go in. But teams are not going to push through this. This area here is very difficult to play around. And most teams I wouldn't expect to push through that area. You can see they're all maneuvering around on the sides. Some of them are going up this way. Some of them are going around this way. But a lot of them are rotating around, and everybody wants a center position. Now, the fun thing about this, and for those of you guys who don't know, a fun thing about this area, it's not... Teams in the early game likes 2 things. They like scouting, and they like cover. They like to be able to look around and see where opponents are, and they like to be safe. Now, it's just getting there that can be scary, Hayes. Now, the funny thing about this area in particular, with the exception of, I think, 2 compounds. You have this compound here, and you have this compound over here. Navi always goes up and plays this. But with the exception of these 2 compounds, pretty much all the buildings in this area, here, I'm not gonna sit and draw them all up, but a majority of them are in the low area. And everything, I say this in these videos all the time, but I think now that it's the finals, maybe more people will watch it, therefore I'll say it again. All these roads that I have perfectly drawn up, by the way, as you can see, all these roads are the low point. So if you have the mountain, the road will go through. The road will go through. Like, it's like this, right? So mountain, mountain, road. Does that make sense? So the road is down here. I think I've said it enough now. I think you understand what I mean. This is where the roads are. Which means that if you want the compounds, you can't scout. You can't really scout forward if you isolate yourself to compounds. Unless if you have one of these 2 compounds. So teams will try and do a split where, early game, where they can have both. Which is why, if you look at it, QM, compound secured. Compound secured. High ground with vision. And this one is one of those multi ones that is both high ground and compound. So, compound, lockdown, vision, vision. 2-2 split, essentially. Over here, vision split, compound. Vision split, compound. Vision, compound. You see what I'm saying? Vision, compound. It's teams try to get both in the early game. And then this area, that's why I both love this area of the map for late game, but I also hate it. But the funny thing is to see, and that's what I want to have you guys look at, if we should get a circle in this area tonight, is to look at how teams then prioritize. Because yes, you can split out this wide when it's circle 1, and you can maybe do it in circle 2 also. But once the teams get forced closer together, you have to make a decision. What is most important? Do we want the compound? But then we cannot scout anything, but we will at least be safe. Or do we want the vision, but people can shoot at us, but we will be able to see something? It's always interesting to see where teams decide to position themselves for late games in this area. So let's keep an eye on this area and see how teams decide to play around in this area. SKT push up towards W. Click 4 AM. They split out wider on the east side. Ensis Ace, they come in from the south, trying to scout further forward. New circle pops, and this one is what we like to say a hard shift, because it's pretty much connected down there. Now all these teams up on the northern side will have to come in this direction. And this, of course, being a massive crater, is something you would most likely rotate around. So there's going to be, I mean, it's just when you look at it, you have this portion is pretty yikes to have to push through. This up here can be done, but it's also a little scary. This down here you can technically do, but it's really scary. This up here you wouldn't be driving through. Up here you can drive into the circle. Kind of up on that ridge side as well. Up here you can come in, but this is already taken. So you can kind of see that the players that are coming from the west or the northwest side of the circle, they don't really have a lot of options. Like, they can go through here, and they can go through up here. They don't really have anything else available, which is why you'll see Rumblers wrap around. Genesis wrap underneath. Na'Vi and FaZe wrap over the top. Rumblers actually wrap really far underneath to try and get into a better spot. But it's kind of funny to see. It's kind of interesting to see how they decide, or why they decide to make these like full-on committed decisions that they do. It's because of the terrain. Gen G, they wanted to go in this way, but they realized Na'Vi is taking their spot, so now they need to go back out the other way. New circle pops, and we go back up north. Why is this? Because there are some areas of the map that we need to shift away from. And it's phase 4, so it's going to go up to the only area that it can. And some teams know this. That's why FaZe is here. For those of you guys who don't know, there are mountains in this game that count like water. Mountains looking like this. Mountains looking like this. In circle 4, you know how in circle 4 the water will shift away? Or the circle will try to go away from the water? Let's mark all these areas that look like that. Is this technically as well? I'm not sure actually. I think that's it for this area. And then down here as well, but that doesn't really matter. So if we mark all these areas and think that these areas are water. Let's act like these areas are water, right? When you then see this, I think actually some of this might be as well. I'm not really sure. Or at least some of this over here is. So when you see these markings on the map, these markings around here, then there's only really one place the circle can go. Dude, you see? It avoids this area, it avoids this area, and it avoids this area. It's the only place it can go. And what team is well aware of this? FaZe Clan knows these things. I mean, that's one of the reasons, especially on Miramar, when everyone is saying, oh, FaZe got circle 4 again. Once it's circle 5, it can go anywhere. But in circle 4, they're really smart at, like, they're really good at knowing the terrain and knowing what areas the circles will shift away from. And yeah, it's a difficult thing to do. One thing that's interesting here is that Lazarus actually have a wide split, a good one, somewhat greedy but good. And this compound stays available for quite a while, as far as I remember. Luke leaves, but because no one is playing the hillside, which you can't really play in this circle, there's no one down here. 4 AM don't really want to push over. I mean, they're already in a somewhat decent position. They're not going to leave, and this stays available for a surprisingly long time. Surprisingly long time. New circle pops, still open and available. And since Ace don't even go down towards it, they end up getting kind of blown up where they are. Everyone is trying to rotate around. Of course, San Martin is a yikes place to have to be now. FaZe, two-way splitting over on the hilltop. Get vision this way, get vision that way. Try and find out what we can, what we can do with the circles to come. Again, compound in the middle of everything, completely open. And I think Lazarus realized this. They go, wait, no one took that compound when we left? And they go back and can play it again. It's very rare that you can leave a compound in circle 3 and get it back for free in circle 6. It is a very rare occurrence, but somehow they actually managed to make that work. That's pretty impressive. Na'Vi go up to take the fight with Gen G. A billion nades were thrown all over the place. FaZe try to hold the side down here. Rumblers push over. They try to get out. FaZe play it smart. I mean, they're just holding their side. Lazarus know they have to leave. Try to make the run forward towards the circle. Not really a whole lot to it. I mean, it's... You kind of got to do what you got to do in this case. And for them, it's we need to get into the circle. And they need to push forward. And they know it's tough because not only are they fighting Ensis Force right next to them, but every time FaZe is peeking over, they're shooting down towards them as well. So Aloe is all by himself in the end of it. Tempo Storm just chilling in the compound. And at this point, remember, at this point, Tempo Storm has 0 points. No, wait, they have 4 points in total from game 1. We're in game 5 now. They have 4 points, and I think they got here 12th place, 15th place, 0 points, 15th place, 0 points, 14th place, 0 points, and now they're in the end game. Tempo Storm had a very, very, very tough day. They only have 4 points in, like, they get 1 point per game on average. Up until this point. Until now, they get 1 point per game. They find 1 kill, down there, and all of a sudden now FaZe has to push forward. And this was actually a pretty interesting fight. There's not really, like, we don't need to spend time watching the replay. 80 pushes up to the building, they manage to push through, they get 1 kill, but essentially, like, eventually they they get taken out. We could watch the clip, but it's not really too important. They play it well. Sampa gets himself a double with the MK14 in the end, and they win the fight. I mean, MK14 with a red dot is just... It's like a shotgun, but it's full automatic. It does so much damage, and it shoots so fast, and it's just a scary gun. So interesting end to that game. I'm gonna go over to game number 6. And let's see. I'm gonna scroll out. Was there any questions? Who is FaZe IGL? You guys have already answered the questions yourself. Remember interview, they said they don't really have a real IGL. Yeah. Okay, so everyone has suggested a player to be IGL. Did anyone say HC was IGL? No, then I'm gonna say that, because then we have said that everyone on FaZe is the IGL. Confirmed now. Everyone on FaZe is the IGL, and nobody is. The only rule about being an IGL on FaZe is that no one is the IGL on FaZe. You know? That was a weird... yeah. That's funny though. Anyway, let's hop into the final game. Let's jump into the final match of day number 1. Alright, decent plane. Pretty similar to what we had in the previous game in terms of where people go. And also pretty similar circle. This one is a little further northwest. Last one had some of the eastern sides inbound, inside it as well. But this one, a little further northwest. But of course, everyone has just, like, literally just played a game that was in a very similar territory. And I think that makes everyone think, okay, we know what to expect now. And also, one thing that I don't know how much to put into this. I would love to hear some players' thoughts on it. But when games are played in PUBG competitively. They're played on different patches, obviously. And now I don't know this because I've never talked to a PUBG employee who told me this is how it works, Toby. But we do tend to see whenever, let's say it's on patch 1. This is just an example. It doesn't have any reference to reality. Just an example. So, in patch 1, we saw a lot of games go El Pozo. Therefore, teams start thinking more games will go El Pozo. And then when we go to patch 2, all of a sudden, all the games tend to end in San Martin. And it's like, what the fuck? How does that work? So teams tend to build up these tendencies or thoughts on, if you guys remember in PEL, there was a lot of games that ended in the same areas, right? We had the fields down on the south side of Gatka, and we just had a lot of very similar endings because all of it was played on the same patch. Now, in PGC, it's the new patch. It's the newest, it's the live patch, and teams haven't really had time to figure out the tendencies of the circles. And again, it's all speculation. I have not had it confirmed from PUBG Corp people that the games, like that the patches do have impact on how the circles move. But I have seen enough similarities in some cases that I believe there is some sort of, either it's some algorithm stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it works, but yeah. There is something like that going on. I'm pretty sure. And now it's a new patch, so people are pretty confused about what is going on. North Shift patch. We'll see. Maybe all three games go up here today or tonight. Could you imagine? That would be kind of sad. In any case, the circle is north again, and the rotations are, well, I mean, for some part pretty similar. Teams do commit more into the northwestern area, and now with this shift, it's even more. And the main thing here is we have 1, 2, 3. I guess you can't really count Genji, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams who have to make rotations in this direction. I mean, they technically all do, but these guys are already in the circle. But we also have a mountain, city. So this is gonna be, this is gonna be nope. This city is gonna be nope. And you're left with essentially, I'm not even gonna call this a rotation opportunity really, but I'm gonna draw it about it anyway, just because I got lazy. You're left with very few options for teams to rotate. And you can see through, over, under, kind of through, but that way. So this is it's kind of scary. And remember, again, we get into that situation where phase 4 we can start seeing things that the circle will try and avoid. Tempo Storm, decent two-way split for this circle. SKT trying to play the hilltop. They know that 4 AM is down below. TSM, they play the center compound. GX holding over towards, there's like a church area up there. FaZe has a really nice circle on the western side. They were also one of the first teams to rotate, so they're sitting pretty well in it. Gen G up on the northern side, waiting for the next circle to pop, trying to spread out to get some more control. And now this one pops. And this is most likely going to be avoided. That is going to be avoided. And that is going to be avoided. Let's draw them in red, all of them. I think this is how it is. Let's just keep these markers in play to see if our theory ends up being correct. 4 AM, they managed to leave. Now they get pulled up on by Lazarus, trying to take the fight towards them. Enters Ace again with their rotations. Enters Ace pushing up. Whoops, pushing up. As soon as the new circle pops, I talked about this in the what do you call it, in the playbook video as well, how Enters Ace always rotate pretty much immediately. They're sitting, they're dynamic, they're ready to go. Once the circle pops, they send it in quickly before anyone else can get there. Fast rotation, they get the spot. Good split, good push by Enters Ace. And now they're in position fast enough so that if anyone decides to breach them or decides to cross towards them, they will be out and ready with their guns to take the fights. TSM pushed down to the little position in the valley. New circle pops. Look at my markers, guys. Look at my markers. These 3 spots for circle number 4 are water. 2, 3. Circle 4 has to go away from water. Oh, Toby, there's no water on Miramar. What do you mean? Look at these 4 positions. Inaccessible terrain. And yes, I know I drew it out on the line, but I guess you can walk up here. It's not a perfect circle I made. I'm sorry. But still, my point stands. And what team, once again, knew this? FaZe. They knew where to be. They knew where to be once the 3rd circle popped. Also because they couldn't really go anywhere from this position. But, I mean, they could have tried to push further center. They could have tried to wrap around this side when they saw these guys push down. But they stay because they know that this has to be avoided. And correctly so. That's exactly what ends up happening. There's a system to it, guys, and hopefully when season 2 starts, we will somehow have figured out a way to avoid that. GX trying to hold off 4 AM. You can see how they're playing. Just stay on the edge, and it's smart not to go into the blue as well. They could push out to try and force them away or try and get kills, but if you get a player knocked out here when the blue is coming in, we can't rest, so it's just too dangerous. Stay inside so that, I mean, even if you do get a player knocked, at least you don't have to worry about the blue killing you. So they all stay on the ridge, on the edges. Very smart play. Gen G try to push over. They managed to take out Rumblers. Smart play by them to make the push on foot. A game where Gen G didn't get circles, by the way. They still managed to make good plays. Still making plays even though they don't get the circles. VC, wide split. We've seen this is very common in the Chinese, I guess you can say, region, to do wide splits late in the game. Like, they won't over-aggress, but it's just teams like VC, teams like QM, other Chinese teams that didn't qualify for PGC, like playing these wide splits, and, well, for the most part, it works out pretty decently because opponents normally don't expect it, and they like splitting in areas where they can still hold off and help each other, even though they're a little further apart than most other teams would be. Na'Vi getting fought off by TSM. Great hold by them. TSM played it really well. And then with the new circle popping, going north around this time, FaZe they're split at 2-2 on the south side. Like 2 guys on each side of the road. And they can now decide, do we go this way? Or do we go that way? The thing is, this over here is really flat. And if you're here, you can see everything there. So FaZe has 2 options. Either A, they push this side. Like, either they go to this side, that's option 1, and then they need to kill everything over here before this fight is done. That's the first option. They can go over here, but they need to deal with everything on this side of the road before there's only 1 team left here. Because once there's only 1 team alive over here, and once that team realizes that they are the only team alive, then they will start looking this way. Once they know no one is coming here, no one's coming there, no one's coming there, then they will just start looking like this. And then it will be very difficult to be a team that's running around in the open if you're still fighting against other teams. You know what I mean? So that's one option. Go over here, but you have to make sure to kill off all these teams before this fight is over. Option 2 is to do the opposite. Go this way, because then all of a sudden you're not really forced to take these fights over here. Push this way on a fight that you've already heard has started. These guys have been shooting back and forth. I think there was a knock at one point as well. They saw TSM was fighting Na'Vi. They saw there were players knocked, so they probably have damaged helmets, damaged vests. They have used some smokes. They've used some grenades. And FaZe, they're pretty calm on the south side of this circle. So either push up here, force fights, and run into the open. That's scary. Or run over here, have a chance at engaging in a fight that's already going on. Good third-party opportunity. And if you time it right, you might be able to get a really good engagement because TSM has to push in. And if they don't figure out that FaZe is coming, then like if TSM doesn't know that FaZe is coming in behind them, then they will not even care to look behind them. Like, they will be so focused on taking this fight, and you see them, they're waiting. Once the fight starts, once they know they're in the compound, here comes FaZe. Hello, brrr, all of them killed, and all of a sudden, FaZe becomes the team that they were afraid of. FaZe becomes the team that they were afraid of if they were here. We talked about it. If they had pushed this way, it would be dangerous because a team over here could sit and see everything. Now, FaZe is that team. Now they can sit and see everything. And all of a sudden, with 4 players alive, they can just start, well, everyone is out in the open. There's not really anything you can do. They're inside the next circle. I mean, no matter where this circle goes, FaZe wins this game. In this position. I don't think any other team wins this game than FaZe. It even goes north. I mean, theoretically, VC couldn't have had a much better circle, but it's still not good enough. There's nothing they can do against FaZe in this situation. They have the control. They have, I think, 3 times level 3 gear or 1. I don't know. They had very good utility and everything, and they just run them over. So very good end game by FaZe and very well-timed engagement. And also, like, when you have to make the not tough decision, but they made the right decisions in the end game. They played their area of the circle where they knew it was going to go. And once it came to them having to make the push forward, they made a pretty damn good engagement on it too. And that's going to wrap it up for this video if you're watching on YouTube. So see you all